This one is just funny. I'm liking this one. Yeah. This is more things about piracy and finding illegal content and stuff you're not supposed to do. It's really, as we've talked about, this is really just about the big content providers not wanting people to have competing ways of getting their stuff out there. And yes, there's illegal stuff on the Pirate Bay, but there's also a lot of legal stuff too. And a lot of people are depending on things like that for distribution, BitTorrent and other things, perfectly legitimately. But anyway, so one problem with this, I think, is that the big search engines like Google, they weren't fighting this from the start. They should have. They should have stood their ground from the beginning and would be in a much better situation. But now Google is making pirate sites harder to find in search results. Now, the whole idea of a search is that you're trying to find what you're looking for, right? And if Google is not showing you what you're looking for, then how is it a good search engine? So now pirates are recommending DuckDuckGo, and this might end up being one of those cases where they say, oh, DuckDuckGo is a pirate site, we need to shut it down. They've done stuff like that before with other search engines, but it's not really. It just doesn't do the crazy censorship that Google does. I like DuckDuckGo. It's my default search engine. Even on my Android phone, I took off the Google search and I put on DuckDuckGo. Yes, you can do that. Google lets you. Google doesn't tie you down into their ecosystem like certain other companies I could mention, but I'm not going to. Crapple! Yeah. So anyway. So this is a Torrent Freak article. In an ideal world, search engine users would be presented with the most authoritative set of results in response to a specific search. But we don't live in that world, because due to bullying from governments and the big corporations, they're tampering with certain search results such as piracy. And it's Google's algorithm, it says, that decides which sites appear in response to any kind of search. Precisely how those decisions are made are closely guarded secrets, but in more recent years and under pressure from copyright holders, we've known that Google has been heavily tampering with piracy-related searches. The general line is that Google voluntarily demotes and downranks sites for which it receives large numbers of valid DMCA notices. Now, in Google's defense, I can kind of see if you've got a site that has a whole bunch of illegal content, and you've got people who may not be searching for illegal content, you kind of don't want to steer them there, because that's not what they're looking for. You're going to want them to find legitimate content. You don't want them to find a website that's full of malware, for example. So I can see that, but what we have here is, well, I've talked about this so many times, the DMCA system is just completely broken, rife with abuse, and it appears to have been designed that way. So sites that are punished for continually infringing or just having people claim, remember, when they send a DMCA notice, they don't have to prove anything. That's just a claim. It's just an assertion that there's infringing content of the site. So when you get a lot of those, you're not really presented as a top option. Unless searchers use a considerable amount of Google foo, Google is no longer a good place to find pirated content. In fact, people are more likely to find scammy and dangerous sites instead as they bubble their way to the top to occupy the vacuum, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. We don't want to get the scam sites. We don't want to get the dangerous sites full of malware. We want to get the sites we're looking for. And so we're talking about places where people are looking for because they have this content. And so if you say, okay, well, we're going to exclude that content, well, that's what rises to the top. So we're actually going against what I said earlier. You want your search results to protect people, but it ends up having the opposite effect. What a surprise. Alright, so searching Pirate Bay on Google is almost pointless because they've received zillions of copyright complaints. The site doesn't appear in the first pages of Google's results unless people search for its precise domain. However, with the site blocked by ISPs all around the world, what millions of people are actually looking for these days is Pirate Bay proxy sites that facilitate access to the sites. These also receive millions of complaints, so Google downranks those too. DuckDuckGo doesn't do that. So they say DuckDuckGo has a tiny 0.5% of the search market, but with its pro-privacy stance is increasingly favored when it comes to seeking out pirate content. Well, it's just increasingly favored by people who don't want their search results manipulated the way they perceive Google's as being. That's why it's my default search engine, even though I'm not looking for illegal stuff. It's just better search results. You get better at try it. Just try it. You get better results. I don't want this to become a case where, like they have with cryptocurrency now. Oh, cryptocurrency is all about money laundering because you can't really, tell who's doing what or whatever. No. Cryptocurrency is legit and so is DuckDuckGo. But it's not filtering these results. So there you go. While this might not please copyright holders, DuckDuckGo's relative obscurity doesn't make it a prime target for them right now, but in a bizarre twist we noticed this week, it appears that Google has somehow determined that its rival is the most authoritative option for a particular pirate search. This is the funny part. I absolutely love this. When you search, at least in Australia, it's going to block millions of pirate sites, none of which have been presented with a court order, neither has Google, but they de-index all of these sites. So when you search for Pirate Bay proxies on Google, the very first result is the DuckDuckGo search for Pirate Bay proxies. Hey, you want to find Pirate Bay proxies? Click here and you'll get a much better search than one we'll give you. That's what you want to use. They're basically admitting that. So, I don't know why this is the case. I don't know if someone there did it or their algorithm just figured it out or whatever, but yes, their top result is promoting a rival service because, normally they're promoting, of course, their own services because why wouldn't they? But, it's not only pointing them to DuckDuckGo, it's pointing them to that specific search, Pirate Bay proxies. Yeah. So, all that having been said, Google has arguably done its job here to perfection. Either by design or otherwise, its algorithms have determined that DuckDuckGo is the best place to find Pirate Bay proxies, and they have got that absolutely spot on. So, yay Google! Good job there, sending people over to DuckDuckGo. I wonder if we'll see more of this as more and more searches get filtered and censored and everything else. They go into a little bit of a history of piracy, and they talk about it being long before Google was founded. It was even before the internet, because I remember back in the Commodore 64 days, we'd have user group meetings where we'd do all sorts of stuff. We'd learn cool stuff, about the Commodore 64 and things you could do with it, and we'd help each other with problems. But of course, what would we do? We'd bring our discs, and we'd all copy them. So one of us got a copy of this new game or this cool piece of software. Well, after that meeting, we all had it. So, this has been going on since before the internet. It's more widespread now, but it's always been going on. It's kind of like the same kind of thing happened in music, because we were listening to cassette tapes. You can actually buy these decks where you put in the tape you wanted to copy, you put in a blank tape, you hit a button, and it would dub the tapes. So, a friend of yours bought a new tape from a band or something, you could just dub it over. Everyone was doing this. Everyone was long before the internet. It was just a thing. This isn't anything new, so. So anyway, I'm going to scroll down a bit here. By choice or by force, Google will undoubtedly clamp down further on piracy, and its rivals will eventually have to follow suit. It may take a while, but basic searches will no longer prove useful to pirates, and they will have to find other ways to educate themselves on where to find content, which they will do. Yeah. Most large file-sharing discussion communities, and there were many, died out years ago, partly due to waning interest, partly due to the rise of social networks, but mainly because piracy was no longer niche and presented on a plate often via search engines. These communities may have to rise again because, and you can quote me on this, Reddit, Facebook, and similar platforms will eventually go the same way when it comes to piracy. But I wonder how long it's going to be before we have a decentralized search engine that doesn't work that way, that doesn't filter all this stuff. Or better still, lets you filter stuff. Yes, I want to filter malware. I want to filter scam sites. You could even say, I want to filter pirate sites. Don't show me the pirate sites. I want to get to the legitimate streaming sites. I mean, if you've got a movie or a TV show you want to watch, you check Netflix, it's not on there. You check Hulu, it's not on there. Okay. Is it on another streaming service? Perfectly legally. I want to go search for it. You know, I'm not looking to break the law. I'm not, so, you know, there may be a use for giving you that power, you know, or, you know, having some kind of parental filter on it, but completely decentralized, you know, completely, you know, crowdsourced with the ratings, people rating whether or not a site is a pirate site or whatever. So that could happen. And I think that would actually be a better thing where there wouldn't be anything you could go to say, oh, we're going to take you down. We're going to make you sensitive. There's no Google. There's no, you know, corporation or group or individual behind it. It's all this decentralized thing. So I kind of hope that's where we're going, because if it can happen with so-called pirated content, it can happen with anything the government doesn't like. And not just the government, but politically connected corporations. If they don't want you to know about something, and they can go to the search engines to get it delisted, then they can do that, and that'll be a big problem. But in this case, I think it's just funny. They're just sending you right over to DuckDuckGo. Maybe when those alternatives are built out, if DuckDuckGo ends up doing the same thing as Google, which I hope they won't, I hope they'll stand their ground. But if they do, and someone, you know, builds a decentralized system that works a lot better, maybe Google will send them right over there. So I'm going to say to Google, keep up the good work. And to you, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider donating at donate.bogosity.tv, even if it's just a few pennies in crypto. It all helps. Or you can become a regular subscriber at Patreon or Subscribestar. They got to see this video early, got to see a little bit of my preparation and things like that that go into it. But really, any little bit you can give is just very appreciated, even if it's just pennies. So thank you so much for watching. Stay strong and be free.